Before the success stories, the progress, there was you. You who made a choice to grow, to inspire, to overcome your own challenges. At NASM, we're in service of your limitless potential because when you keep growing, we all get stronger. And we'll never stop making your journey our mission. Join the fitness leader. Become a fitness leader. Become a certified personal trainer.
Welcome to this week's Master Instructor Roundtable. I am Wendy Batts here with my friend, my co-host, my fellow regional Master Instructor friend, Marty Miller. Marty, you want me to just go ahead through your bio as well?
No, we're good. We're good there, Wendy. I'm good. How's everything going?
Things are good. Things are good. So today's topic is one I think is of high importance based on feedback that I hear very often from some of the trainers that I mentor, as well as some of my clients. Marty, I know you and I, when we talked about this topic, you agreed 100% that it needed to be put in the know. And we're talking today about women and the muscular development training phase, which would be phase 3. This phase used to be hypertrophy if you are looking at an old edition, but we ended up bringing, it started as the MDT phase in the first few editions. Marty, that's how you and I learned it. And then they changed it to hypertrophy training, which is one of the goals that you will achieve in phase 3. And then I think the word hypertrophy freaked people out. Plus, a lot of people called it hypertrophy, which is wrong. And we went back to its original roots.
Yeah, it's a good topic because it's kind of like I get deja vu. I worked in private country clubs for a long time. And I remember bringing women into the fitness center and they're like, oh, I don't want to get bulky. And like I'd hand them a 5 or 8 pound dumbbell for stability training. And they'd even worried that would bulk them up. And I'd have to go through the whole science of, I wish it was that easy. But also, here's the advantages if you do put on a little bit of muscle. So I'm glad that we're bringing today's topic up for sure.
Yes. So we are going to talk about the importance of building muscle in female population. And we don't want to be like you hear people say skinny fat. I don't want to be skinny fat. I want to be skinny toned. You know what I mean? Like I want to look like I work out, but I also don't want to be gigantic, Marty. And that's one of the reasons we're talking about this, because unless you eat, you won't. We're going to talk about why this matters when you're designing programs and how you can talk to your female clients about this, why we use the specific acute variables that we do. And then, of course, always we're going to talk about having fun when programming and making sure you have a really clear understanding of what your client's goals are. So when you talk to them and reference back, they're going to see that phase 3 is going to be also important.
Yeah, and by the time somebody gets to that point of phase 3, hopefully some of the anxiety they may have of the misnomers of the science, et cetera, could be kind of shed away. So that way they're more receptive to it. A lot of the problems with muscular development training is that sometimes back in the day is what people be introduced to first, right? You came in the gym, your goal was to lose weight. They put you in a training program as 3 sets of 10, isolated muscle groups. Didn't really make a lot of sense. So I think we're past that. So we'll talk about some strategies, and I think the science that we're going to lay out will help you communicate to people that are worried about this phase why it is such a valuable part of a full integrated program.
And I think that's important what you said, Marty. You nailed it. Because oftentimes when I'm sitting down, building rapport, getting my subjective and objective information, when I first meet them, before I do any movement assessments, I ask them what their goals are. Most of the time, unless it's one of our athletes, it's going to be that they want to look better. They want to lean out. They don't want to get big and bulky. And so I'll ask them if they have spent time in the gym. And when they say yes, I'll ask them, what are some of the things that they do? And they'll do the basic, like you just said, bicep curls, triceps. They'll use the machines. I'm like, great. How many reps are you doing? How do you feel when you do it? And it's usually between the 8 and 12 repetition. So I'm like, well, anytime we ever get to that, I don't say, well, today we're going into muscular development. I'm like, we're going to go into now doing some of the programs that you're used to doing, but you're going to see you're going to be stronger and you're not going to get bigger. And then it's like, oh, But if you find that information out first, you can definitely reference it back 8 or 9 weeks later when you're in that phase, and it makes such an easy transition.
Yeah, knowledge is power. Using the model to help build the rapport as well, and getting people to understand that you have a roadmap is key. So, Wendy, I'll start off here with some of the, key critical parts of why we want to talk about today's topic. Is first and foremost, we look at bone mass. I think everybody understands the value of building bone mass early in life and then trying to hold on to it as long as possible. So women will typically reach their peak bone mass around that age of 25 to 30. And then after that point, it's just how gradual is the decline going to be, right? You got genetics, but we can really do a lot with nutrition and resistance training. So bone remodeling continues, but the bone reabsorption, the breakdown, slightly exceeds bone formation. So this is why you want to build as much as you can in your youth, and then do what you can to have that, that deficit be minimal, right? And then, of course, you've got perimenopause and menopause. This is inevitable for all women at some point in their life. So during these two phases, perimenopause and menopause, their estrogen levels will decline significantly. And estrogen is essential for maintaining bone density. So the decrease accelerates bone loss. So clearly, you can speak to your physicians. They may put you on hormones, etc. But at the end of the day, what you can control is how quickly you can, or how much bone mass you can build before you start to lose it, and then the resistance training to maintain it. And then you have postmenopause. So women can lose up to 20% of the bone density in the first 5 to 7 years after menopause. That's significant. The rate of bone loss then slows, but continues at a lower rate throughout life. So, no one's going to argue that you don't need to build bone mass when you can, and do everything you can to fight the loss of it. And resistance training is our best tool for that.
Well, and this is a really important information because depending on your population and the clientele that you work with, especially if it's the female population, this is going to happen. Unfortunately, it's going to happen to all of us if it hasn't already. And understanding that when somebody goes through postmenopause, or they're going through menopause, or whatever it is, even peri, and all of these declines start happening, if they start to look at their bone density levels, or their doctor does, they will sometimes come to you freaked out because they are at the beginning stages of osteopenia, which is a beginning stages of osteoporosis. And so knowing these statistics and being able to understand, okay, what does that mean? Well, it means they really need to be in there with you. This is what this means. We really want to work on bone density, and resistance training does help change those stats, definitely for the better.
Yeah, without a doubt. The research has been there. We know it. So, just it's time to do what we can control by having people understand this phase of training. So as we move forward here, we'll continue to talk about bone health. So strength training increases the bone density. I've already mentioned that. Reducing the risk of osteoporosis and fractures, which is critical, especially as women age. Increase your metabolism. Like Wendy, you talked about being toned. You talked about being lean. So muscle is what burns calories, right? At rest. So compare, how much higher level than fat, which can then help weight management and fat loss. Improve body composition, that leanness that you were talking about. Building muscle can reduce your overall body fat percentage, giving you that leaner and more toned appearance. And guess what? There can be an enhanced cardiovascular health benefit. So regular strength training can and will improve heart health by reducing blood pressure, improving your cholesterol levels, enhancing overall cardiovascular function. And let's pause. The number one leading cause of death in women, Wendy, is?
You just said it.
Cardiovascular disease,
yep,
right?
I was going to say heart health.
Yes. So you're going to get those other benefits you need. And then we talked about blood sugar. Everyone knows about it. They even call dementia type 3 diabetes. So you're going to want to get ahead and keep your blood sugar at a controlled level, and increasing that muscle mass and decreasing the loss will definitely improve your insulin sensitivity, and which can help prevent and manage type 2 diabetes.
Well, and I can tell you, as I've gotten older, Marty, the things, there was a certain way that I wanted to look, and I was younger. I'm like, okay, I've got 2 weeks to do this, that, or the other. And I could usually make it happen. I would train really hard. I would eat really well. I would do the things that I know I needed to do. Now, if I have 2 weeks, I'm like, oh my gosh, I may hit a fraction of what I used to, even if I do the same things, because it's just harder. It is harder for women to hit the goals and see the results, especially if they're used to doing it quickly when they were younger. Things slow down, and it takes a long time to hit these goals. And so I think understanding this is the benefits, understanding how do you talk to your clients about it, and being very crystal clear of, listen, this is all about your journey. We will get you to these goals, but think about all of these other underlying things that you can't see. People don't know their heart health unless they're going in and getting that checked all the time. But when they can walk up a big hill and not get winded, that's a win. So those little wins are going to add up, and it's important to just make sure that you're knowing why you're doing this. And especially when they get to this phase, you can bring this up.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, when you give them an idea that they're going to increase muscle mass, but that doesn't mean bulk up, that even if it's 3 to 5 pounds, they've already maybe lost 10 or 15 pounds, depending on the person. I think, and when you can correlate it to their overall health and longevity, I think it becomes a much more understandable and realistic goal for them to say, you know what, I would like to put on a little bit of muscle mass.
All right. So Marty, I'm going to stop you there because I'm going to be the female that walks in and I'm going to say this, you're my trainer. And I'm going to say, Marty, I don't want to lift heavy because I want to get into my skinny jeans. And as soon as I start lifting heavy, my quads blow up and I can no longer get them over my quads.
Mm-hmm. Well, that'd be great. So Wendy, obviously you've trained in the past. So can you define lifting heavy to me?
Oh, well, if I lift anything over 15 pounds, I'm just going to be huge.
Gotcha. And is this a particular exercise that you've done before, or do you just have a weight that you
if I just do a lot of
benchmark?
squats and lunges, I know that I'm going to bulk up, especially if I have weight in my hand.
Gotcha. Okay. Do you do cardiovascular work as well, or do you just do weight training?
Oh, I do. I ride the elliptical every day.
Okay. And what about your diet? How's your diet?
Oh, it's on point.
Okay. So here's the thing is what we can do is we can measure, your circumference measurements. We can look at all that. But the key point, Wendy, is for aging, we need to make sure you're strong. So if there's a particular exercise you want to avoid right now, I'm absolutely fine with that. But your lower body is essential in your overall training and your goals of what you talked about. And what we're trying to do here is by having your legs, which are your biggest muscles in your body, working, you're going to burn more calories. So that's going to help keep you leaner. But at the end of the day, we have to make sure you're strong. So when you say lifting heavy, the reason I ask that is we don't need to have you do anything 5 to 6 repetitions. We're looking at 8 to 12 repetitions, and we're going to back that up with supersets or with other things right afterwards to keep your heart rate up, things that we call like metabolic blasts. And that's going to help burn those extra calories so you can still be strong without being bulky.
That's so good, Marty. That's exactly what I would say. And I think the biggest thing that people don't understand is in order to get big, Marty, I mean, you try this all the time. You wanted to get as big as you could, and then you just kind of stopped. It's all about what? Your diet. How much are you eating? So calories in versus calories out. If you're taking in smaller amount of calories, and again, I know it's in more detail. I'm just being very basic here. So if I'm watching my calories and I'm eating really lean and healthy foods and I'm staying within my calorie, what I say my calorie goal is, if there's a deficit there, I'm going to lose weight. And then if I start lifting 8 to 12 and I'm following a certain acute variable, then what ends up happening is I start burning fat and increasing muscle, which is what everyone's goal should be. So when you get into those skinny jeans, you can still fit in them, but instead of it just being just a big, I don't know, just a leg, there's actually a leg with muscles there versus just a leg with fat. So I think, we always say think about the density of fat and, pound of muscle, oh, I love this. A pound of muscle weighs more than a pound of fat. And I'm like, no, guys, hence the word pound, right? Lean muscle mass, a pound of lean muscle mass is smaller in comparison to a pound of fat. And so you definitely want the pound of muscle over a pound of fat. And guess what? It still weighs what? A pound. So don't say that because that's not true. A pound is a pound of whatever it is you're weighing.
Last time I measured.
Last time.
Good stuff, Wendy. No, so I'll let you go jump in here.
Well, on the Master Instructor Roundtable, Marty Miller and I are talking today about women in muscular development training phase, which is phase 3. We're trying to break the myth that if women go into this phase, they feel like they're going to get really big and really bulky. We're trying to show you guys all of the benefits, no matter what age a female is, the importance of it. Youth need it to build their bones, work on building and increasing your muscle mass and your bone density. Females need to maintain it. And then once we hit the menopause phases, whether it's peri or post, We're on the decline. And so we're talking obviously about the basics, but now let's talk about some of the different types of exercises. And this goes for the entire OPT model, but the more complex movements are that you're doing, obviously the more joints that are going to be in play, which means more muscles are going to be in play. So if I'm moving more muscles, and then it's also going to burn more calories and I'm going to have a better output. But think about the different types of things that you can do. So compound movements, they're going to incorporate the multi-joint exercises. Those are the things that we know: squats, single leg squats, deadlifts, single leg Romanian deadlifts, overheads. But then also do the compound movements or total body exercises like the step up to overhead press. Marty and I love the squat to rows. I mean, think about incorporating the big muscle groups and then incorporate activities of daily living that they should have already been doing and they should have been accustomed to, but now you can do it with heavier load. That's one way of doing it. Of course, isolation exercises. Marty, you talked about this in the very beginning. These are the things that are your bicep curls, your tricep extensions. If someone's on a specific machine that's targeting one primary muscle group, those are the types of isolation exercises we're talking about. But I think the biggest thing, and Marty, I mean, tell me your thoughts, especially in any of the phases, it should be about variety. If you're challenging your body and you're challenging what you're doing, it's harder. You're going to get more out of that workout than if you do the exact same exercises over and over again. There's no change in demand. Even if you change the weight, you're going to end up just think about the SAID principle. You get what you train for. Your body just knows this. It becomes easy. But if you're always doing squats and now I end up doing lunges in a completely different fashion, I'm still utilizing the same muscle group, but in a different way. So variety using free weights, machines, resistance bands, the more that you can target the same type of muscles in different ways, the better the outcome will be for your clients.
Yeah, and we have pattern overload. Even with ideal form and technique, if you do the same thing over and over and over again, even if you're changing the load, you can get pattern overload. So you'd have to change it up. You have to give the variety. Plus, life is not always in the same motions, right? So that's the fun part about it too. And plus, it keeps it more interesting for the client. They enjoy it more. And when you're challenging the body neuromuscularly, right? So what's going on in the brain, plus there could be a higher caloric expenditure because you may not be as efficient in those movement patterns. So that's the value of having some variety. Now, have common sense and control with it. It's not just pure random for the sake of random. It's progressions and regressions. But that's the point, is to change it up with intention so that way your body responds appropriately.
Yeah, and think about too the bone density, right? What are we trying to achieve here? We want to be able to lift heavy, and so doing a different variety is also going to be good. But I'm not always going to load. If I'm going to do squats and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm in muscular development, which means I've got to lift heavy, which is what people have in their minds. That doesn't mean I'm going to be using a bar on my back each and every time I do it. Marty and I have talked about multiple times. I very seldomly put a bar on my back, no matter what phase of training I'm in. However, it's not saying that I won't. It just, I usually don't. So just switch it up, do different things, have fun with it. But it's very important that you don't do the same thing over and over.
Totally agree. And I think you're going to get more compliance, especially with the Instagram world nowadays. People are seeing different things. So it's good to have, even if you're going to attack the same movement pattern because the person needs to stay there, give them different variations of it. For one, the mental benefit of the change. Two, they may pay more attention. And three, they're not going to think that you're doing the same thing, even though you are. So as we come in here to progressive overload, the gradual increases, right? Continuously challenging muscles by gradually increasing the weight, the reps or sets to avoid plateaus and stimulate growth. Like that's key. That's why the acute variables are so essential. That is your cookbook, right? For what you're trying to do. That's your recipe. Far too many people don't get the results they want, not because of the effort they put in the gym per se, but they don't realize they're resting too long. They don't, or some people now aren't resting long enough because they're trying to make everything high intensity, right? So then the volume wouldn't be right, or the workload wouldn't be right. So stick to what's in the textbook, the way we have it, and you'll have your best outcomes. So don't let your ego get in the way and take more rest so you can handle more weight. Do as it says with ideal form and technique, and you're going to see great results. Then as we move into periodization, I mentioned that word earlier, right? So plan and cycle training intensity and volume to ensure consistent progress and prevent overtraining. That's another reason why a lot of people are seeing poor results. It's a lack of sleep, it's a lack of nutrition, It's a lack of other things, but also a lot of people now are on the other spectrum of overtraining, and they're just like almost digging a bigger hole, right? We're supposed to dig a hole. The recovery is supposed to build that hole back, not just to level, but a little bit higher, right? So digging the hole is going in and putting the work, breaking your body down. But if you recover properly, eventually you start gaining. A lot of people just continue to dig. All these you cannot do high intensity 52 weeks a year. If you are, you're not doing high intensity. I promise you, right? Because you're going to find your body's going to find ways to rest within there anyways. So that's why the OPT model is designed exactly like it is, and your periodization program is set up for you.
Well, Marty, I think this brings back when we just had when we had Blake Griffin on. Blake Griffin and Trevor Harris. So Blake Griffin was our NBA basketball player. He was interviewed with Marty and I and Trevor Harrison, who is his trainer that follows the NASM guidelines. And they would say at the end of each training session or the season, that they would sit down and they would look at, okay, this is from the start or the end of where we're starting right now. This is how long I have. And they would literally map out the different phases of training and how they were going to do that together. Because Blake started working with Trevor and they had been doing it over 8 seasons. They had that relationship where Blake understood what they were doing and why, and he wanted to be a part of it. That's why I say, don't be afraid to kind of train and teach your clients because they want to know, maybe not to that extent, because as you heard, Blake has anatomy apps and wants to do that. But I think, especially being a female, I always want to know the why. Why are you having me do this? I'm always going to challenge my trainers. So Lord help us if I hire you as a trainer, just be ready, because I want to know, why are you having me do this particular phase? Marty, you just said it too. If you're not changing body parts and if you're not doing this and we're doing the same thing and we're just doing, if I'm breaking up and I say 4 times a week and I'm coming to see you and we're always doing just even phase 3, that's not going to be necessarily the best thing for me. And undulating periodization is very important. And so if someone's coming in 3 times a week, maybe you're doing phase 3 on Monday, Wednesday, you may do a phase 2 and then go back on Friday and do a phase 3 again. Go back to the basics, keep those nice and strong, because as they do lift heavier, we want to ensure that the prime mover is really firing like it's supposed to. The neural demands are there. The stabilizers are turned on with the prime movers, and they're going to have better outcomes because we know we're not going to then have some sort of issues going on with the way that we look, the way that we feel, and the way that we're moving.
Yeah, you said that so wonderfully. There's not much I can really add to it, but I'll go back to, that's why we have the OPT model, right? It's all built there, and then you can get creative with it. Go through it in a straight path the first time. But I'm a huge fan of undulating my program. Sometimes I'll do stabilization endurance as my warm-up set. Then I go do and then fill in the blank, whatever that, maybe it's muscular development or power, but I still like to stick to those basics. I'm not overtraining. It's appropriate for me, but I do a first set of stabilization training. And then sometimes after my power workout, I may finish with a stabilization. I know we're talking about muscular development, but that's the beauty of the model, that the phase 3 is stuck in there as phase 3 because that's the most appropriate. And the other 2 phases are going to build you ready so that way you can get into that and see the benefits of it. So when we look at physical performance, increased strength endurance, who doesn't want that? Wendy, you and I always say everybody's an athlete, whether it's you or I, or whether it's my 75-year-old mom or your dad who's about 80, who's playing golf. Everybody needs to increase their strength and endurance and maintain that over a lifetime. So building muscle, obviously, we know this enhances overall strength and that in muscular endurance and regular cardiovascular endurance, making just your simple daily activities of life and physical tasks easier and more efficient. Then we have that improved athletic performance. Wendy, I play a godless amounts of pickleball. I'm in shape and I prepare for it, but there's a lot of people out there that are playing that sport as a hobby and they're not ready for those physical demands. So again, getting them in the gym and getting them through these phases. And a lot of the women would need the muscular development phase because they do have issues with the strength and the power output in comparison to other people. So that would carry over. So enhanced muscle mass and strength will contribute to just your better performance. And then enhanced balance and coordination, very critical, especially for people who are aging. Strength training improves muscle function, leading to better balance, coordination, and that ever so important part of taking it into a reduced risk of falls.
Yes. And I'm telling you guys, as I've seen it with my dad. Marty, I know you and I have talked about this with our families. We're seeing our parents age in the decline and how fast that takes. It takes a hold if you're not moving and doing the things that you're normally doing. So it's very important that we just put this and make this something that's our day to day. And a big thing too is, yes, we're talking about being in the gym and how to really get females more involved in wanting to do more of the hypertrophy type strength training, kind of thinking about building muscle mass, seeing all the importance of it. But like you said, Marty, I don't want someone to have to take care of me as I age. I don't want to be the person that falls and all of a sudden my hip's broken and my chances of death have just increased significantly because of some misstep that I took because I wasn't training for it. So it doesn't matter the age. It really starts. And I tell people anytime after 40, this is when you need to hone in on some of this, because it gets harder and harder as you get older. And I'm telling you, it is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
Crazy how that works, right?
I know.
So I'll jump in here. We talked about injury prevention. You just brought that up. Strong muscles support our joints, reduce the likelihood of injury by improving stability and strength. And again, that's just from repetition, maybe running, playing pickleball, tennis, etc. Right? Your body can handle those forces. Without a doubt, better posture, right? Getting people set. There's a lot of stress in your joints and different postures within, your body that will just increase, low back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain, etc. So having a good strength program will increase your ability to fire your core and back muscles, help improve in your posture and reduce back pain. Then, your efficiency, muscle development can make everyday tasks. Like I said, I got to move here in a couple months to my new house. I'll be doing a lot of lifting in and out, right? That's going to just be more efficient, less chance of injury, be able to do things more on my own, right? Then you got some people just simply climbing stairs, more efficient. And then that longevity, building and maintaining muscle mass helps women stay active and engaged in physical activities well into their later years, which quality of life, right? Enjoyment, as well as aging better. So that way you have just a longer, but also a more enjoyable lifespan.
Well, I'm telling you guys, I have a lady that she's getting ready to turn 70 next week. And I took a picture of her. I trained her over FaceTime. We started doing this during COVID. I had her in person, just so you know. So I've been working with her for many years. However, I see her now twice a week over FaceTime. She's very active on the day-to-day. She does things on her own almost every day. And I was having her do plank walks, Marty, and I took a picture of her and sent it to her yesterday. And when she came up, her shoulders and triceps looked so good.
That's
and
awesome.
I'm like, I was very highly impressed with just how she looks.
Right.
And when I sent her that, I'm like, listen, your hard work's paying off, not just visibly, but she's able to do anything that she wants to do. She was playing tag football with her grandkids and she's almost 70, but you would never know it. And so my point is if you start to really think about it, and I have her doing 8 to 10 repetitions and we lift heavy, but she's a tiny woman, but she looks amazing because she hasn't let herself. She's like, I'm not letting myself get old. That's her mentality.
Right.
And so I train her like I would train one of my young kids until she tells me that she can't, or until I see that she can.
That's awesome. That's very motivating. Good for you. So Wendy, I'll let you jump in here because you put this together.
Yeah. So this is just basically something that you can get out of the book. It is literally if you look at this and you're new and you're not sure how to design a true muscular development program for anyone, when you're looking at and thinking about it with females, we've given you all the rep ranges. We've given you how many sets you should do, and we've given you the rest periods. We've given you all the information. You just have to think, okay, the goal of muscular development is to focus on high levels of volume to force cellular changes. Hypertrophy, that means you're going to build muscles. Doesn't mean you're going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It means you're going to build muscles. But in order to get big, you must eat. So there's going to be a caloric gain, not a deficit. So if you're on a deficit burning calories but lifting heavy, you're going to lean out. So this, of course, is going to increase stress on the anaerobic and aerobic energy systems. So you're going to burn more calories. And look at it. You want to think about, too, we can limit the rest periods if you want it to be more metabolic demanding. If clients really like to do what Marty and I and everyone has termed vertical loading, which is one exercise after another, limited rest, you're going to burn more calories. Now, if you're truly lifting as heavy as you can for 8 to 12 reps, you may want the rest. If not, you may want to switch upper body, lower body if it's a full body day, because you want to give your arms a break while you're switching body parts, meaning that if you're doing something with the legs, maybe the next time you're going to do your back, and then going to your hamstring curl or hamstring, whatever it is that you're doing, and then do your chest, and then do your bis and tris, or whatever it is that you're doing. But think about, we've given you the tempo. When we say 1, 1, 1, 1, again, we're talking about concentric, your muscle action spectrum. So concentric, eccentric, and isometric contractions. The first one's also always eccentric, then isometric, concentric, and then isometric. So that's what the 4 numbers are. In this situation, you're going to, if you're doing a bicep curl, you're going to lift up for 1, hold for 1, go down for 1, hold for 1, and then repeat for 8 to 12 repetitions. And that's just easier to do because I'm right here. But anyway, that's the whole purpose of this. We didn't design a program because the creativity is more up to you and your clients. And if they have truly gone through phase 1 and phase 2, they're ready for phase 3. Now, phase 3 is optional, but as you can see, there's a lot of benefit to it. So if someone is super paranoid about working out and doing just muscular development, that's when you can undulate the program and sprinkle it in, and they're going to start to see the benefits of it. And as Marty mentioned in the very beginning, most people start here anyway because they didn't even know what they were doing when they started working out.
No, well said, Wendy. I think there's so many resources within the NASM text that people can find that. But more importantly, I hope today they got the idea of why we should really make sure that our female clients spend time in this phase.
Indeed. All clients, but yes.
Yes. So our takeaways here, even though phase 3 is optional, there are a lot of important benefits, especially for women. We talked about that at length. Follow the model. We covered that as well. Know your purpose for programming. That's why we have that continual model. Every phase has its reason. It can be used for everybody. And then lastly, of course, make it fun.
Always.
Love it. Awesome. Well, Wendy, why don't you give all these amazing people your contact information?
Yes. Well, if you have any questions or you're trying to figure out how you two can get your clients to understand it, I don't usually tell them. That's the easiest way. But if you have questions, I just say, this is what we're doing today. And I very, very seldomly get questions, just so you know. But if you have questions and you need to contact me for any reason, you can always find me on Instagram at wendy.batts13, or you can email me at wendy.batts@nasm.org.
And my information's right here, dr.martymiller72 on Instagram, and marty.miller@nasm.org. So Wendy, thanks for putting this topic together. I'm glad that you brought it up. It's critical. And for all of you that joined us today, thank you so much. And most importantly, as always, we look forward to seeing you next week on the Master Instructor Roundtable.